As we move to proficiency-based assessment, we also need to consider how we give students feedback on individual assignments, which leads to the question, how are rubrics different in a proficiency-based assessment system? To be clear, when we are talking about rubrics in this question, we are talking about using them as a way to give feedback to students and to record student progress toward proficiency. We might also use rubrics to improve our own instructional practice and to collect information on school-wide proficiency development. We do not use rubrics to give students letter grades or numerical grades. So if our focus is on giving feedback and recording progress, what will a rubric for an individual assessment look like? Just like everything else in this process, there is not one way, but we will give you some examples and ideas to think about. One consideration is separating out the task process and deliverables from the proficiency language. When we give the assessment to students, we include a suggested process and product in the student instructions. Let's look at an example from social studies. There is a controversial ordinance being voted on in your town. At town meeting, there is an opportunity to share your thoughts about the ordinance before the townspeople vote. Because so many people want to speak on the subject, there is a 2-minute time limit and you will only have one opportunity to speak. If someone after you raises a contradictory perspective, you will not be able to rebut their claims. However, there are other people in your town who feel the same way as you, and you can work together to devise a strategy so that you can rebut claims at the meeting. Working with 2 other classmates, prepare 3 1- to 2-minute arguments about the ordinance, either in favor or not, that addresses contradictory perspectives so your voices can be heard. Now, let's look at the process and product expectations. When students complete these processes and develop these products, they will be demonstrating skills in multiple proficiency areas. Including these explicitly in your student directions tells students how to act and what to do in order to demonstrate the skill. And we don't need to include these in the rubric. Not including these specific expectations for an assessment in the rubric allows for greater flexibility. For example, what if a student wanted to follow a different process? Or if you had 1 or 2 students who could not, for whatever reason, coordinate speeches? Would they be able to complete the assessment in a different way without the teacher having to write a completely different rubric? So what might a rubric look like? Here's an example using Vermont's language for speaking. Note that we give feedback on individual performance indicators and that the rubric language is almost identical to the proficiency language. You might be thinking, I see many places in this assessment where students are demonstrating transferable skills. How do I include those in my rubric? If you use the sample Vermont proficiency documents, you notice that only one level is defined and that distinction comes in with content proficiencies. In this case, you might have 2 parts to your rubric, one including the content proficiencies and one including transferable skills as a 1-point rubric. Every proficiency does not have to look the same in the rubric, but each should make sense to students. As a school system, you might also choose to tease out the transferable skills at different levels, as described in the collaboration rubric in previous questions. The text-based reflection has 3 different rubrics to look at, all proficiency-based. In Practice the Process for this question, we ask you to look at a performance assessment and write a rubric based on your proficiency language. Then we ask that you complete the performance assessment and use your rubric to self-evaluate. We encourage teachers to always do performance assessments themselves before giving them to students. If the teacher struggles with a task or the rubric, how will the students perform? This is also another way to test your proficiency language. Thank you for watching. Remember to record your work in the Evidence of Learning tool and to check out more resources below. If you have any questions or want to share additional resources you think might help others, please contact the Center for Collaborative Education at vtclg@ccebos.org.